there, friends. Rebecca here, the Dragon Librarian from Farmington Community Library. And Alderon and I are here today to talk to you about some more of my favorite books that I read back in 2023. So, last week we talked about my top 5 favorite, right, adult fiction books. This week I want to talk about my 5 runners-up. That doesn't mean they're any less fantastic than the top 5. That just means that they were in the top 10 and I needed to make a split somewhere or that video would have been a million hours long, right? So we split it up into the top 5 last week and we're talking about the top 5 runners-up today. And I'm really excited about it because they're books that I think are absolutely fantastic. I loved them so much. And again, these are my very personal, opinion about the stuff that I read last year, right? So you may have heard of some of these books and been like, I can't believe she's talking about that book. That book was not that great. Or maybe you're even thinking, oh my gosh, I read such and such book. Why didn't she mention this book at all? And if that's the case, please, please, please let me know in the comments. I love talking about books, obviously, and I love hearing from everybody about what some of their favorites are, because then maybe it's one that I haven't heard of and I will have a new book recommendation, right? That is the absolute joy and the absolute beauty of reading and books, right? Because 2 readers can come away from the same book, can read the same book and come away from it with completely different experiences. I love that. Isn't that just magical? I just adore that. That is just the most amazing thing in the world. So again, maybe these top 5 are ones you haven't heard of and there are going to be things that you want to check out. And if not, leave me a message in the comments and let me know, hey, this was the book I read that I thought was really fantastic, and we can have a conversation because I love book conversations. So, without further ado, book number 5, The Last Chairlift by John Irving. This was so heavy to pick up. It's almost 900 pages long. Yeah, there are a lot of things about this book that I think might turn some people off. So, John Irving, if you don't know, this is the first book he's written in, I think, 7 or 8 years. So it's been a while since he's come out with one. And even if you haven't read his work before, you've probably heard of some of his previous works. The Cider House Rules, A Prayer for Owen Meany, what's the other one I'm thinking of? Oh, The World According to Garp, right? Are all really amazing books written by him. This is his latest book, his new one that just came out last year, The Last Chairlift. Now, I can completely understand, with as much as I loved this book, I know that this book is not for everybody. So let me tell you what I liked about it, and you can decide whether or not it's something you want to give it a shot or not. So this book is basically, it is a story that is very character driven rather than story driven, okay? So this book focuses mainly on this family of characters and their lives throughout the years. 900 pages of that, okay? So if you are more of a story-driven person, this might not sound super exciting to you. But if you are a person who loves character-driven stories, you will not find a better one here than this. Can you see it like weighing me down as I'm talking? It's just so heavy, this book. It's very dense. I loved this book. So it takes place in Colorado, and it starts out with this woman who is a champion skier. Her nickname is Little Ray. And when she's a young woman, she gets pregnant. Never discloses who the father is, and she leaves her career of skiing to be a ski instructor instead. And she's raising her son Adam with her parents, and it is just basically this cast of eccentric, amazing characters throughout the years. So she gets remarried again. There are other characters that come into Adam's life. People come and go. And I know that sounds like not a very descriptive summary of an almost 900-page book. But like I said, it's very character-driven. If you love stories about families, particularly found families, because this is not... The people that come together in this book are not a normal family in any stretch of the imagination. And if you love stories about families and characters that find each other and build beautiful relationships together, you will absolutely love this book. When I tell you, I laughed so hard at some parts of this book. My husband looked over because he thought I was having a mental breakdown. I laughed so hard at certain parts of this book. it will be so dear to me because of that. I also cried buckets of tears with this book too. This book, within these almost 900 pages, brought out in me this huge range of emotion that was just inexplicable. I can't even tell you how emotional this book made me. Because, you know, of course, as you're talking about the family and as you're going through these decades worth of time, you know, of course, other things like the politics of the world come up. You talk about Adam's his poor quest to find love and his true soulmate, and this parade of girls that he has gone out with, and the mishaps and shenanigans that happen with that. Oh my gosh, I can't even with this book and how much I loved it. Like, I'm getting so emotional just talking about it. And like I said, I am well aware that this book may not be everybody's cup of tea. If you go on Goodreads, there are lots of people who are like, oh my God, this book was way too long. Nothing happened in it. It's just a bunch of characters living their lives. Yes, it is just a bunch of characters living their lives. Because really, when you boil it down, this book is about life. It's beauty, it's heartache, the joy, the terror. It's about everything. And I cannot recommend this book enough by John Irving, The Last Chairlift. Please give it a shot if you think it might be something you would like to read about. Oh, it's getting me just all the chuckles just remembering the parts that I was laughing at. Okay. Book number 4. It's one that I talked about not too long ago, so I'm not going to get super, super detailed about the plot. The Vaster Wilds by Lauren Groff. I went back and forth with this book a lot because at first I was like, oh, I love this, but I don't know if it's going to make it into my top 5 or my runners up. And I think the reason for that is because I was holding it back in my mind because I loved her previous book, Matrix, more. So because I loved Matrix more, that was one of my favorite books from a few years ago, I was holding it back. But I realized that was unfair because this book is so phenomenal and I'm still thinking about it, even though I read it a few months ago. I'm still thinking about this book all the time. I think about the writing. I think about the character. It's incredible. And basically it's about a young servant girl who is living in the Americas in the 1610. I wrote it down, 1609 in Jamestown, Virginia, in the colony there. And she escapes. There is a tragedy that is happening in the colony. She flees in the middle of the night. And it's basically her trying to survive in the Vaster Wilds in America, right? All the things she comes up against, the wildlife, the nature. So it's a very harrowing story. It's a survivalist story. But it's also so beautiful because she has these moments of pure grace and just beauty. And, oh, this book is really phenomenal. And it's not very long compared to the one we just talked about. This book is a little bit over 200 pages, I want to say. Almost 250, so it's not too bad at all. There's a lot to discuss in this book. She goes through all kinds of, because this is such an introspective book, because you've got this main character and it's just her story as she's proceeding on her, quest, adventure, what have you. It's very introspective, and she has a lot of questions that she's asking herself. She's going through a lot of, it's an emotional journey in addition to the physical journey. And that was really amazing to read about. I love Lauren Groff. If you love her writing, if you haven't read anything by her before, give this a shot. It's absolutely phenomenal. Like I said, I was originally holding it back in my mind because if you like historical fiction and love beautiful writing, read Matrix, because that is just, that is my favorite book by her. But that doesn't bring this book down in any way. It's just a different story. And I love this. It's so good. It's so well written. And the emotional and introspective journey this character has is truly beautiful to behold. The Vaster Wilds. Okay. Number 3 is a book that surprised me quite a bit because it's one that I wasn't really expecting to continue to still think about. And yet I am still thinking about it, and I loved it. And this author is actually going to appear on another list, another upcoming list of my top favorites of 2023, but we haven't talked about her yet. And the book I want to talk about today is Alone with You in the Ether by Olivie Blake. Now, primarily, she writes fantasy books. this is a realistic contemporary fiction, bit of a romance, bit of a coming of age story. So it's very unlike some of her previous works that I've read. If you've read the Atlas Six, if you've heard about that series, which is a really popular fantasy series, she's written that. A lot of her work has previously been written self-published or independently published, and now has been picked up by a main publisher. So they're all coming out now. So this past year, we've gotten like 4 or 5 of her books that are just like, oh my gosh, what is happening right now? They're just all incredible. And this one, I'm still thinking about. And it's a very simple story. Again, it's a short book, probably less than a little bit over 250 pages. And it's a romance, but it's a very unique romance. It's the story of a very flawed young woman and a very flawed young man, and a meeting that happens between the two of them that you know, was very serendipitous, that develops into this flawed relationship that they are trying to work on together. And it was just really cool. I loved it. So the main female character in this is, she's an art, I want to say thief, because she does she can create these fake art pieces, right? And sell them for a lot of money. And she meets this young man who is a professor who has his own mental troubles. And they are so very different. Like, he is very mathematically inclined and she is very artistically inclined. And the way that they come together is like amazing. They meet one day in this art museum that she works at, and they strike up a conversation, and it just goes from there. And not only, what I love about this is not only is it just a love story, it's a story about people. And it's a story about, I don't want to say bettering yourself, because that sounds really cheap and I don't mean it like that, but kind of, right? So both of these people come into this relationship with deeply flawed personalities, and they learn that they want to be better for not only the other person, but for themselves as well. So there is a lot of character growth in this book. This is another character-driven story. So in terms of the plot, there's not a whole lot of monumental things happening, but watching these two people work out how to love themselves so that they can love someone else was really absolutely gorgeous. And I'm just going to tell you right now, I have read almost everything that this author has written, and all of it is phenomenal. She is an incredible writer. There is something about her writing that is just mind-blowing. So give her a shot. If you're not a person that enjoys fantasy and stuff like that, that's okay, because she's got this one and it's wonderful. Alone with You in the Ether. You're going to be thinking about it for quite a while. Now, that might be a book you haven't heard of before. This next book is one I'm sure you'll have heard of it, because it has appeared on many different lists, many different best of lists and whatnot. Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. I've got the special Barnes & Noble edition with the pretty blue pages. I just love this book. This book is so popular right now. It's been on the bestsellers list forever. We can hardly keep it in stock at the library because people keep reading it, even though it came out, a while ago. It's not like it just came out. I don't actually remember if it came out this year or if it came out in 2022. It did come out in 2022. So it's not even a brand new book, but everybody's talking about it. There was a show on, I think it was Apple TV, starring Brie Larson, which I have not seen, but I've heard it's very good. This book is great. I'm not going to delve too deeply into the story because I'm sure you've heard of it by now, because like I said, everybody's talking about this book. But basically it takes place in science, right? In the STEM fields in science in the 60s, with this woman who is a scientist, and basically it's about her coming up against the misogynistic, sexist, male-dominated field of science, right? And chemistry, and how she makes it her own. She starts this cooking show that uses chemistry, right? Because she's like, I don't really care about, household stuff or whatever, but she uses chemistry to relate to this cooking field and to relate to her audience. And the audience members, the women that watch it, it is transformative. So it's about the show that she's doing, but it's also about herself and her life the man that she loved. It's about her daughter. It's about their dog, which is the best character in the whole book. I'm not even going to lie. I just really loved it. If you like and enjoy books about strong, empowered women who are empowering women, you're going to, I think, enjoy this book, because that's the main thing really for me, is that not only is it about a main character who is very empowering, she uses her personality and her gifts to then empower more women. That's amazing, right? You can't ask for more than that. It's amazing. So yes, the hype for this book is real. I held off on reading it for such a long time because I was afraid. I'm always afraid of overhyped books, right? I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna love it. I'm terrified of hating it when everybody else really likes it. But this book, the hype is real. I loved it. It was phenomenal. The writing was really good. You could absolutely tell that the author has some knowledge, previous knowledge about this field, and it was just great. Loved it. Lessons in chemistry. Okay, down to the wire. My number one runners-up book for adult fiction. Okay, this is another one that I read towards the beginning of the year, last year, and it's still with me. I'm still thinking about it often. Still thinking about these characters. I'm still thinking about the story and the writing, and I think it's such a powerful book that will be talked about for ages to come. And that book is Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. I mean, now, just to let you know, I love Barbara Kingsolver. I haven't read all of her books yet, but all of the ones I have read, I've loved. I love, love, love her writing. She's so good. So, also, I am a big fan of Charles Dickens. And this book is a very, very, I don't want to say retelling. I don't want to say reimagining, because I don't think that's quite right. But it is definitely inspired by David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. You do not have to have read that. You have not had to read that book to read and enjoy this one. But if you have read it, you will get an added bonus with the parallels of some of the things that happen in this book, and some of the comparisons that you can make. It's really cool. I think this would make a really great book club book, particularly if you guys were to read David Copperfield first and then read this one and then talk about the comparisons. I think that would be really fun. But even if you don't want to do that and you just want to read this book, you can and enjoy it 100%. This book is, well, it's another character-driven story. Wow, we're talking about a lot of those today. And it is about a young boy living in Appalachia, America, and basically it's about his life. And it starts when he is born, with the circumstances of his birth and his mother and his father, and the way he grows up and continues into his adulthood. So again, not a huge amount of things happening, but at the same time, yes, because isn't everybody's life full of things happening? This is another really incredible story about a life, okay? I learned a lot of really interesting things that I didn't know about before, such as why there is such a huge drug, particularly opioid problem in this part of the country that still continues on today. The, enforced basically poverty that is going on down there. There's a lot of social issues that I had no idea about until reading this book. And it was very, very interesting. I also highly recommend, if you are going to read it, there is a foreword by Barbara Kingsolver in the beginning of this book that talks about how she was inspired to write this book. Definitely read that first, because it's really, really cool to read that and then start jumping into the story. Again, I really love this book, and I think even if you are a person who is more drawn to story-driven books rather than character-driven books, I think there's still a lot to like here, because there is a lot that happens. And again, this book, like anybody's life, is full of tragedy, it's full of joy, it's full of beauty, it's filled with horror. It's the story of a life that is probably very different from your own and what you're used to. And it's just so well written, as only Barbara Kingsolver can do. She is a phenomenal writer. She takes this young boy, and even if it's set in a place that you maybe don't know a lot about, you will just want to hug this boy and give him love and just be his friend. It's an incredible story. No matter what he goes through and what he does, you're just rooting for little Demon. He is amazing, and this story is amazing. Do not miss out on this one. It is absolutely fantastic. Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. Well, there you have it. Those are my top 5 runners-up for best adult fiction that I read in 2023. Next week, we're going to be talking about my favorite thrillers and mysteries. And then after that, we're going to finish it all up with my favorite fantasy and sci-fi books of last year. So if these books sound really interesting, feel free to come check them out from Farmington Community Library. And also, please let me know in the comments if you have read any of these books, if you love them, or if there's other books that you read that you think should be on this list as well. Talk to me about it. We love talking about books. And thank you so much for watching, friends. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of the day.